to be a member of this great society, to be brave like policemen, or to be famous. One of the favorite things to do while I am working as a judge to invent or to discover new ideas about the judgment, especially related to the rights and freedoms of people. I recommended the legal field to be a field of study or to be a field of research. A member of the judiciary authority is a way or is a gift from your God. So you can invest this gift to give people freedom, to give people comfort, to give people security, to give people even a way to find their ways or to have their choice. New students every semester or new students every academic years, it is somehow like upgrading your mind according to the new ideas of new generations. Working as a police officer was a very impressive period in my life, and I can't forget these 2 years. Harder part of being a judge to deal with a new kind of case that you didn't deal with before. The court, of course, it's a very holy place.
I would like to welcome our viewers and Mr. Abuzeid to our show today. He is an experienced legal advisor and consultant with a demonstrated history of legal affairs and working in courts, investigation, dispute resolution, and judiciary for administrative, contracts, and criminal cases. He has a background in security and prosecution fields, skilled in legal English research, negotiation, legal advice, legislative expert for human rights, women's rights, and gender equality laws, legal administrative research trainer and instructor for courses of international relations. He's a strong legal professional with a PhD in law, focused in constitutional law, rights of freedom, interested in poetry reading, history, shooting, and traveling. It's a very, very impressive list of accomplishments you have there, and I would be very excited to learn a lot about these. But I would also really like to roll back a little from all these accomplishments and maybe go way back to your childhood and see if you have any memories or experiences you want to share that have contributed to this really impressive list of accomplishments.
Firstly, thank you for this introduction and thank you for all this information. Of course, when we are talking about childhood or memories or experiences, of course, we must begin with the period of the school education, being in a very large group of students and friends. Of course, this was a very good environment for me to exercise my experiences, to express myself. It was a very great number of friends and colleagues in the same class and in the same school. We all enjoy our diversity between boys and girls and different cultures and different environments, of course, when we are coming from. And this made me very keen to know more about people. How can they think about their habits or customs, about their learning and education, about their religions, about their how they can proceed, the way they can worship, how they can see us and how can we see them. And of course, this diversity gave me the first ideas about how to think for all these writings and all these educations about rights and freedoms. And according to this, I can exercise my experiences and how can I develop it during the period of school, dealing with people and expressing myself and of course absorb other cultures related to me in this period.
Oh, that's a very open-minded approach. Since you have such a long list of very, very impressive accomplishments, is there something particular you wanted to do since you were young? Or did you always want to just be a judge?
No, it was not one of my dreams. I really used to dream to be a doctor in medicine and treatment of sick people, something like this, from 20 or 30 years ago. And still up till now, the function or the job of doctor is a very respectable job here in Egypt. So it was a dream of many people when they are students in schools. And of course, I was one of them, especially when I was specialized in my studies for the section of sciences. So I didn't study a lot of math or a lot of literatures like history or geography or something like this. I was studying biology, chemistry and physics, and I was preparing myself to be a doctor. And of course, I succeeded to be a student in the faculty of veterinarians here in Egypt. But of course, being a veterinarian here in Egypt is somehow a strange thing. Deal with animals and give medicine and treatment for animals. It wasn't totally accepted. So I chose to change my career and to go through the faculty of police, and after that to go through the field of judiciary.
It's a very interesting transition. And you spoke about being a police officer. So how did you land on that decision of choosing to be a police officer?
Somehow it was an idea created by me to be a member of this great society, to be brave like policemen, or to be famous, to make a very great thing serving my country or serving people. And on the other side, it was an advice from my father. He was also a policeman. So he advised me. He said that if you didn't get your preferred faculty, or if you can't be a doctor, so you can change your career and you can choose a very successful career. And I am seeing you in this career, and I will be glad to be after me in this history. So he encouraged me a lot to go to the police academy. And of course, firstly, it was very difficult to go through the legal studies and the security studies after this medical or the scientific background. But by time I trained myself to how to deal with the legal field according to the scientific basis I had. So it was really an entertainment or fun, on opposite for many people who can study law. But I gained this experience and trained myself how to deal with these subjects. And of course, my father helped me a lot to go through and how to deal with this subject.
Well, Mr. Abuzeid, we have something in common because my father is also a police officer.
You may one day be a police officer also.
Maybe. We'll see. And then you chose to move on to being a judge. And did your interest in legal studies then, from being a police officer, lead you to becoming a judge? Did that, or was it something else entirely?
Of course, after having the Bachelor of Law, one of the very, very respectable functions or jobs you can occupy to be a judge. And here in Egypt, you can start this career by being a member of the prosecution authority, investigation with criminals and how to prepare for how to build a case from scratch. Of course, it was also an advice from my father and my mother also, and of course my doctors and teachers in the faculty police. They say to me that we noticed that you love this field and you are going through the years of the police faculty in a very good way, and you had a very experience, and of course your grades and marks encourage you to join this judiciary field, so you can prepare your papers, and went to firstly the prosecution authority to be one of the member of the general attorney here in Egypt. And of course, after about 2 years working as a police officer, I prepared my file and introduced myself to General Prosecution Authority, and God be praised, I was accepted among my colleagues and friends from all the faculties of law here in Egypt. We were about 150 or 200 persons to be appointed in this year, in the year 2002. And from this date, I start being a member of the Judiciary Authority here in Egypt, or the first steps to be a judge here in Egypt.
If I may ask you, what are some of your favorite things about being a judge?
One of the favorite things to do while I am working as a judge, to invent or to discover new ideas about the judgment, especially related to the rights and freedoms of people, how to solve disputes between people and the government, how to ensure or how to encourage the rights and the freedoms of people in front of the government or in front of the authority. When I first began this function or this job, it was somehow important to finish my work, to make a very good investigation, put very good questions for criminals, how to prove this crime and how to collect evidence. It was really hard to do this function. But by time and by thinking that how to use these tools to achieve justice, of course, the vision was differentiated according to not only I want to make a very good investigation or to finish my crime, but I really now want to achieve more justice, to make a different way or an influence in my society by the message I can say by my judgment, and what can I read, what can I write in my judgment to assure these principles and to do this function.
In your opinion, is that good legal practice?
I recommended the legal field to be a field of study or to be a field of research. But to be a field of work or to be a field of function, I can recommend this to people that they like this field. Because if you don't like the legal researches or you don't like the legal way of life and the legal job, certainly you will not apply good in this function. You will not present yourself in a good way. Of course, law needs people who can bear it, who can accept it, who can go through large books, who can read a lot, who can deal with these cases or with these investigations. So if you find yourself in this field, of course, you must do this job or you can be presented in your job. But if you don't like, so you can be very good in researches, to be a faculty staff, to teach law for students. And I think that this also is a very good field to deal with for the qualified people in the field of law.
Do you have any advice for people that are pursuing a legal career?
No doubt, of course, reading everything you can see, even the newspaper, even advertisements in the streets. Of course, reading is a very good gate for this field. This is the first point. The second point, you must make a dream to achieve, and you must believe that studying law or being a member of the judiciary authority is a way or is a gift from your God. So you can invest this gift to give people freedom, to give people comfort, to give people security, to give people even a way to find their ways or to have their choice. And of course, when you can see your job according to these principles, you will make a great difference, and people also will feel your importance or your effect in the society.
I was very fixated when I was reading your profile that you were interested in women's rights and gender equality. Could you please talk more about that?
Thank you for your compliment. Of course, according to the circumstances or according to the history and according to the customs and traditions here in Eastern countries, especially Arab countries, and of course Egypt is one of them, it's very noticeable to detect or to conclude that the ways or the procedures or even the legal frame for women activity, education, in health, in marriage, in even business and traveling or having their essential and basic rights and freedoms had a very great percentage of shortage. So it needs a very pressure in more researches to open more discussions about how to make women gain more rights and freedoms or to make it nearly equal with men. And of course, it was a very large journey or a very long journey to achieve this. But I think we can now say that we gained a lot of success in this field.
So what made you want to focus on women's rights and gender equality particularly?
Firstly, I believe that every man in mankind is manufactured by a woman. Of course, if you cannot be manufactured or by your mother, so you were manufactured by your elder sister or your grandmother, or maybe by a woman you loved during your life. So every woman in the field in the life of a man must leave a very great influence in his life and way of thinking, of course. According to this way of thinking, I believe that women taught us a lot as men. And of course, we must return back this favor in the way that we can save their lives, save their rights, save their dignities, or save their freedoms, even by writing some researches and spotting on some ideas to give them their rights and freedoms. I think it is a very good functioning for my specializing and for my studies and for my experience to serve this field or to, as I said, to return back the favor for women who can or who help us during our lives.
That was very, very impressive. I was very, very impressed by that when I saw women's rights there. And I also saw an interest in human rights. Would you want to talk more about that, maybe?
Human rights was the first journey in my studies. Of course, it was the first thesis of my PhD. I discussed it in 2009 in the Faculty of Law in Bani Suef University about religious rights and freedoms for Egyptians, Muslims or Christians or Jews, how it will be accepted or how to be easily can change your religion from one of the three heathen religions or Abrahamic religions. And of course, if there is any way to invent a new religion here in our society, will it be accepted or will it be refused, and why it will be accepted and why it will be refused. Of course, it was one of the very sensitive topics here in the Egyptian society, and I was keen to shed a light about problems that can arise from this field, and if these problems can be turned to be cases in courts or to be crime in some times. And of course, it was very interesting research. I made it through 5 years, and this was the first step in the world of human rights, and after that related these theses for many other human rights, like rights of education, right of work, or any other human rights can be affected by the religious thinking, or how to be discriminated according to your religion to gain all your rest of human rights.
I think that's very interesting that you drew a parallel between religion and freedom of religion with human rights. I think that's the very essential part of human rights, is to be able to practice whatever religion you want to be. Any other values you carry in your legal profession alongside these great ones like women's rights and gender equality, human rights? We see some really impressive ones here. Is there anything else that we're missing out over here that you want to talk about?
Of course, as you said, they are all related. We cannot differentiate or we cannot separate between the religious freedoms, the women's rights, or even the whole rights and the freedoms that people can enjoy. But I think the religious freedom is the first point that we must discuss. It presented our identity, it presenting our thinking, it presenting our traditions and the customs that affects other rights and the freedoms that we can enjoy. If we settle the religious freedom in the right way from the first scratch, so all rights and the freedoms can be easily practiced or can be easily gained, and mainly the rights and the freedoms of women, that it's many times was impressed and affected by the religious interpretations and the religious opinions. And of course, this affected the rights of women, especially, as I said, in work or in education, or even according to the vision of the society for any women. For a long time, it was affected by the religious thinking and the religious freedoms.
So would you familiarize us with the process of being a judge in Egypt?
It may be somehow different from other countries. Here in Egypt, the judges are appointed in a very small age. I think I joined the judiciary field when I was 22 years old, and it was really a very small age. This was since about 23 years ago. So firstly, they choose a very great number of qualified people in the faculties of law. An interview was made by the head or the president of the judiciary body that you want to be appointed at. And after this introduction, or after this interview, it was really a discussion or a friendly discussion between you and the president of this place. And will he accept you, or will he feel that you can be a member in this judiciary body? Of course, according to his great experience, how to choose a judge from many qualified people in law. And of course, after maybe 2 interviews, I passed. I was chosen to be one of prosecution attorney authority in the beginning, and after 1 year I quit. Then I represented my papers another time in the State Council, which is the administrative judiciary body here in Egypt. And it was also after 1 or 2 interviews, I was accepted to be appointed as a judge in the administrative judiciary power here in Egypt, which is called State Council.
So you said faculty member, then I'm assuming you've been involved in teaching and being a professor then?
After having my PhD degree in 2009, this encouraged me a lot for being a faculty member. And of course, I was encouraged by many of my colleagues and my teachers, even in the judiciary body. They pushed me to present my paper and to express myself to be a faculty member and to be an instructor of law. They encouraged me according to, I didn't find this talent in my talking or in my experience, but they were insisting that you have this talent and you can communicate with students and you can connect this information easily and you can give legal studies in a very easy way that can be accepted for the law student or even other students. So I began teaching introduction of law or some subjects of business law for students of faculties of commerce and administrative sciences. And after that, I was chosen to give lectures and to be an instructor of administrative law and administrative judiciary and constitutional law and human rights for more than about 5 or 6 faculties of law within Egypt.
So do you enjoy teaching?
Of course, nowadays I am enjoying teaching more than the judiciary work. Of course, the judiciary work is very heavy and it had many responsibilities. This makes you always in a mess of cases and disputes, and how can you think to solve all these problems and give a good decision or a good judgment. But according to the teaching process, it's very interesting, and dealing with new students every semester or new students every academic years, it is somehow like upgrading your mind according to the new ideas of new generations that you can meet in faculty. So of course it is more interesting than the judiciary field, and encouraging me to give new researches and to invest the new ideas that I can discuss with my students in new articles or new visions that we can add to the law system, which is very heavy and very slow to motivate or to change easily. According to these new ideas, I think teaching serving my judiciary function a lot.
So I was looking at your trajectory I was following you as you were speaking, and I've seen that you went from medical background to police officer to being in legal studies, and you also have experience teaching. I have a question for you. What's your favorite thing to do out of all of these things? Like, what has been your favorite?
I can say that the very impressive part of my life, and of course it was very little, it was 2 years, but I think working as a police officer was a very impressive period in my life, and I can't forget these 2 years.
I'll take that as my signal to listen to my father and be a police officer. And since you've had so many experiences, do you have any advice for younger people that don't know what to do or don't know what to choose? Because we've been presented with so many choices and so many changes in the world as technology grows and the world's becoming more global. And a lot of us feel lost there sometimes. And with someone with so much experience, do you have any advice for those of us that do feel lost?
Yes, of course, I understand very well what you are discussing. And of course, people, especially young-aged students in the secondary schools or high schools, had great problems to choose how to begin their career or what will they do in their career. Of course, many circumstances can affect this decision according to your family circumstances, maybe your budget that can be afforded to any studies, the available or the accessible faculties that you can join. But my advice will be mainly upon 2 pillars or 2 bases. The first one, you must choose the field that you can bear, even it was difficult, even it was long, even it was very hard. But if you love it or if you like it, so you will be so patient to end this journey and to have your certificate according to the preferred career for your dreams. The second pillar or the second base, the advice from old people is very, very, very precious and very honest, especially according to the family. Your father and your mother, of course, their advice are very, very appreciated and had a great effect in your life. And of course, it will be a great training for you to give advice for people after that, according to the experience that you passed through.
And I also noticed that as far as you've talked so far, that your friends encouraging you to teach, or your father encouraging you to be a police officer, there seems to be a lot of influence on you or from the people around you. So like people in your life have a lot of say, and what do you think, do you think that people continue to have a say in your life? People that you love, people that you feel close to, still are involved in your life, and they help you make decisions or encourage you to make decisions?
Yes, of course, this affected me a lot, and I always asking people for advice or even listening for them if they give this advice by themselves. It may be one of my main bases in life to ask for advice or to hear advice. Maybe someone cannot accept this or he preferred to take his decision by himself, but I get this advice as a challenge So if they are saying that you can join this faculty, or you can enter this field, or you can do this thing, I get these ideas and I refreshed it in my mind. And of course I said, why didn't we make an experiment or an experience? Why cannot we try this new field? And of course, I can make even a small step in this field. And with this spirit and with this new emotions for the new field that I will enter, of course, this encouraged me a lot. So it began first by advice. And this, of course, depends upon the good and strong relations between me and the one who give me this advice. And on the other hand, as I said, it will be a challenge or an examination for myself. Can you continue in this field? Can you make success in this field? Can you present yourself in this field to be one of the remarkable members in this field? So this competition made a new spirit to give more success.
I'm gonna pick on your hobbies from the list, and I'm gonna pick. I saw poetry reading. So, what kind of poetry do you like to read?
I think historical ones, love poetries, I preferred, of course, and some of the patriots' poetry also I like. And I used to write poems about maybe 2 or 3 years during the faculty studies related to the literature field, gave me some new ideas, some new vocabularies, some new way of thinking, or maybe some representation skills for dealing with people, and how to make messages by words, how to affect people by words. Of course, reading a lot of poetry served me a lot in this field. And of course, poetry, especially from all other branches of literature, give you a high standard language that anyone can accept, or some words that serves your ideas by an accepted way for all people. So it's very good field to deal with and very good topic to read.
Would you mind naming any poetry at all that you like?
They will be in Arabic, so
I'm not sure if Leila and Majnun is Arabic, is it?
Yes,
Leila and Majnun.
yes.
I have read that one in English, not in Arabic.
And we had, of course, we had a lot of poets here in the Arab regions, and one of the famous poets here in the Arab region was Nizar Qabbani. Nizar Qabbani was a very famous one, and he was a diplomat also, and he practiced poetry beside his work. He was a Syrian poet, and I loved most of his poets, and really I was affected by him, and I learned a lot from these poets, even the emotional ones, or the political ones, or the historical ones. Of course, he affected me a lot by his language and by his poems.
It also mentions traveling. So, would you like to talk about traveling?
Yes, of course, traveling is one of great pleasures in my life. Even I tried both kinds of journeys. If I was traveling for work, or if I was traveling for fun, or to discover new countries or new places, dealing with other people, talking another languages, expressing another ideas between people. And of course, it's a great pleasure also to know the history of places, the history of people, traditions of many societies, how this affect the recent image or the recent life they are living now, how they were from maybe 50 or 100 years ago, and how they are now, and maybe the way they can achieve their great projects, how old people can leave these monuments in these countries, the new children in these countries, what can they think, or what can they present to their countries. Of course, my special concern among all of this, what these people are believe, and how can they worship, and how can they proceed their religious procedures. According to me, it's a great pleasure to notice this in many societies and in many countries. Muslims or non-Muslims, I really get a great fun to notice how these people can do this, and what is the differentiations between every society and every person. How can he gain this religious freedom?
It kind of sounds to me like traveling sounds like a way to get to know and connect to people, which helps you almost connect to your work and explore the freedom. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yes, of course. I learned this a lot, especially when I traveled to Europe. Of course, it was a very great journey, affecting my way of thinking in the judiciary field, how to concern or how to make it a great target to achieve rights and freedoms for people, and how can you gain this easily from the administrative body or the government with all its powers. So how can you go these powers and to save the rights and the freedoms of people? Another countries like Korea, like Lebanon, like Saudi Arabia, like Mexico, and of course the Gulf region, Bahrain, Qatar, Spain, France, all these countries, I interested my journeys there because this served my research field in the field of religious freedoms. Of course, in these countries, I met many people and I dealt with them, and we were talking about topics related to their religious thoughts and religious visions. And of course, this served a lot in my researches about religious freedoms. Of course, one of the journeys I am dreaming of to achieve one day is going to India. India, according to me, is a very great dream to visit one of these. Of course, I know that I will find a treasure of religions there, and of course, I really need to go through this experience.
So, did you have any challenges while you were working as a judge?
To transfer your way of thinking from being a police officer, a member of the government, and how you enforce law, and how you being totally in the service of the government, and how to turn this way of thinking to be the judge that can punish or can stand against this government and to make a correction for wrong rules or wrong decisions that can affect the rights and the freedoms of people. Of course, this turning in your way of thinking took a lot of time from me. And of course, I was affected long time by my experience and my history in studying in police academy and being a police officer, and to turn this way of thinking to be a judge or to be neutral or to be not affected by the very heavy and great body like the government, and how to be in the side of people or individuals to gain or to save their rights and freedoms.
We would also like to, if you could take us to the court with you and let us know what it's like inside the court. So what is your experience like inside the court in general?
The court, of course, it's a very holy place, like the mosque or like the church. If we are in our mosques receiving the message of God, in the court, we are achieving the message of God. Of course, justice is one of the gifts that God gave to his people on earth, and of course judges are the guards of this justice, and they can achieve it. And how can they invest their talents and their education and their way of thinking to achieve this justice, which is also the aim or the dream of anyone who enters the court raising his claim to gain his rights. I worked in the court as a president and as a member. Of course, being a member with a large number of colleagues, giving you the experience of dealing with many cultures or many environments that your colleagues come from, another governorates here in Egypt or another faculties of law that they were taught by different doctors. So this will give you a new way of discussion and accept new ideas from other people, somehow different from you. Of course, being a president of the court and how to manage the way of justice in your court, of course, it was really a great responsibility. So how can you be elastic with many ideas or many opinions or many judgments that the judge want to say or the judge want to write in his judgments, and how can you unify this direction of your court, and how can you set the basis that you will work upon with your members of the court. Of course, all of these responsibilities, it's not dangerous, it's not difficult, but it's very important to learn how to deal with people. I believe that managing the justice system is very important, like having a very good legal studies or a very good legal experience. So you must achieve both of them, justice system and also your legal experience, to give a new and acceptable image about the judiciary body and to gain more respect for it from all the people in your society.
It seems like that being where you are today, it gives you a platform to be able to pursue these changes and things that you're passionate about, be it freedom of religion like we've discussed, or human rights, women's rights. But just like in every career that you would know better than everyone, since you have such a wide range of accomplishments, has its ups and downs and good parts and slightly harder parts. Do you think there is a harder part to being a judge that you don't look forward to?
Harder part of being a judge to deal with a new kind of case that you didn't deal with before. A case with no precedents, a case with no history, a case which is the first time to be discussed in courts. And of course, it's really difficult to initiate your principle or your rule in the judgment from scratch. On the other hand, it's a great thing to invent your way of justice. Or as you said, to invest this judiciary to be your platform to say your words and to give your message to the society and to give your message for the parties of this claim, who is right and who is wrong and why you are right and why you are wrong, and you can justify your opinion and to improve it and support it by legal rules and legal opinions, maybe from jurists or from previous judges that they can help you in solving this case. It may take some time, but it will be a very good result.
How did you come to approach your first ever case as a judge?
Of course, I remembered it was a case I was investigating in the General Attorney Prosecution Authority. It was really a very hard accident for a family that they crashed their car by another car. They were 7 persons in this family, a father and a mother and 5 children. They were all died except one child only survived from this accident. It was a very strange situation that I was put through. It was the fault of the car that the family was riding in. And of course, the other car was not wrong. He didn't make anything wrong in his road. But according to very hard emotional situation in this accident, and according to one only child survived from this accident, and his family was very angry outside my office, and they are asking for right now, and we are asking for the right of the blood of the dead people from our family, and they were very angry and they were shouting outside my office. When I was asking the driver of the another car, he said that I didn't make any fault and it was their fault. I said to him that I must reserve you in my office sometime, not for the things that I am thinking that you are wrong, but I am really saving you from any harm that they can make. They can kill you outside the office when you are getting out. So I reserved him in my office now for maybe for the next day, just to secure his life till all these people go away. And after that, I released him from the office. It was really a very hard situation and a very emotional one. I was really impressed by.
That sounds like an awfully difficult case, especially if it's your first case. It can be very jarring to be thrown into that.
Yes, of course. I was very young at this time and I didn't know how to deal with this situation, but my head of the prosecution unit that I was working at said when he met me the second day, he said that you made a good thing, and if I was here, I will do what you did.
I think just in any profession, we're all prone to making mistakes. We make mistakes at school, we make mistakes after school, in workplaces. I don't assume that you make mistakes often, but if you ever come across a situation where you do, how do you deal with it?
No, of course, no one didn't do any mistakes. Of course, I made a lot of mistakes, but God be praised that these mistakes was not very huge, or was not very affecting, or was not very harmful for myself or other people. But of course, they were a mistake. Nowadays, I'm always saying for my children and my students that don't waste your time. This time is a very precious treasure that you have. If you waste it, you will regret it all your life. And nowadays, I am remembering now the first mistake I did in my school periods, that I wasted a lot of time and I was playing a lot, and I was a very, very, very annoying child when I was a little person. And of course, this affected my way of thinking at this time. My father and my mother pressured me a lot and advised me a lot that you must study your lessons and you must be careful for your career. And of course, my elder sister was very careful in her studies, and she was also from getting high marks every month or high grades every year. So I was in a very hard situation. I didn't like to study and I didn't like to have many lessons. But nowadays, I really believe that it was the first mistake or the great mistake I made in my life.
That's another thing we have in common. I was also a very troublesome child, and my brother was also very careful, being the older sibling. So I was the troublemaker of the family. Yeah. And I have one more point of interest now that we're still here. But it says that you have taken lectures in international relations. Is that a line of academics that you're interested in apart from legal studies?
From the first steps in the research field, I didn't enjoy a lot the international relations. But according to some situations or according to some experience I gained or some position I occupied in the judiciary field and of course in the academic staff field, especially when I was borrowed as a legal advisor for the Bahraini parliament in the Kingdom of Bahrain. I was a legal advisor for the House of Representatives, which is the parliament body in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Of course, at that time, it was very, very important to read and to have ideas about how other countries can evaluate your country and evaluate your legislations and evaluate your way of thinking according to what laws you are producing. So in this field, I preferred that discovered that it was very important to study international relations. Of course, one of the main legislations any country can have the international agreement or international treaties. And of course, according to consider these treaties as the rules of law in your country, so you must have an idea about the international relations, how these treaties was formed, how was written, and what is the influence of these treaties in your society. So it was a very interesting way of research to begin according to this, to dealing with these international treaties or international conventions.
It's also a very broad subject. It includes history, geopolitics, politics, relations between countries. I'm an international relations student, if you cannot tell.
No, you are right. History, totally history. Of course, we are the product of our history.
We would like to know your most difficult judgment that you'd had to make till date.
I think they are all difficult, but the main difficult one is it was a case about a mother was raising a claim against the government, asking for her child. He was forced, disappeared, and they didn't find him for a long time. They came to the court in a very disappointed spirit, and they said that it's not important. We are accepting that he may made a crime and he may be imprisoned, but we want to know where is the prison that they can visit him. They want to see their children or their child, or they want to be comfort where he is, or how can they communicate with this. It was really hard to write this judgment, and of course, according to my experience as a police officer, writing a judgment against the Ministry of Interior, it was very hard and it was very difficult. And of course, the judgment terminated by the obligation of the Ministry of Interior to find this person and to tell his family about his place or his prison or wherever he are. But it was really a very hard judgment, because we didn't find a direct rule or a direct obligation that you can ask the government to do. So somehow invented rule or a new kind of judgments that we can write. So I think this one was a very difficult one. I cannot forget.
It sounds like cases like these and cases often leave you in situations that are somewhat emotionally charged. So it makes you want to think through your emotions and still be able to make the right decision, the decision that you believe is right at least. And how do you deal with the emotional nature of cases like these?
This is a very great problem that you can face in the judiciary field. Of course, it's not only a problem, it's a fault to enter your emotion in the judiciary. You must save yourself neutral, cannot be affected by any way or cannot be affected by any pressure. It is the main principle of justice, to be fair and not to be affected by any direction or any pressure in the case, and not to carry any emotions for any part of it, even according to your experience, according to your relativities, according to your maybe admire for one of the parties of the case. And so it's very hard to deal with case that you entered it emotionally. So somehow concentrating in the reading of the case can help to get out from the emotional effect of it. Somehow imagining a new scenario or a new story in the case can get you far away from the emotional pressure that you can affect. If you cannot resist any emotional or any effect that may influence you in your case, so the law gives you the right to apologize about this case and say that I cannot write it, and one of my colleagues can write it, so I can withdraw from this case and I cannot write it. And of course, it's a good way to escape from this emotional pressure. Even it's not good for you as a judge to apologize about a certain case, but if it is the last way to do this, I prefer this. Of course, I didn't do this before. I didn't suffer a very great emotional pressure in one of my cases, but I am asking God not to be put in this situation, because it's really very difficult.
So we're curious, you said the process of picking a judge in Egypt was, in India, we have a legal exam that we have to appear for, which is a very tedious exam. I have a lot of respect for people that manage to. Were you subjected to any such horrible, tedious exams to be a judge?
It was not an exam by a direct meaning, but it was a training courses that finished by a certain evaluation, even by asking you orally or by written exams or something like this. And of course, it's very important in our judicial system that judges must go through these training courses, because, as I said, they are appointed in a very little age. They have no great experience to work as judge. So after appointing in the judiciary body, they go through these training courses. And of course, I had these training courses, and nowadays I am an instructor, or I am a teacher for the newly appointed members in the judiciary body, give them some information about the judicial protocols or the judiciary customs between members and inside the courts, and how to deal with the cases, how to write a judgment, or how to treat people in the court, and how can you respect your president, you respect your colleagues, and how can you put yourself in the frame of a judge. And of course, it will be a very great difference in the personality of people to be turned from a student or a qualified person of the faculty of law and to be turned to be a judge.
One line to define you.
I can define myself as I am an Egyptian person, a Muslim individual, trying hard to be a good person serving the whole mankind.
We want to, of course, respect your time, Mr. Abuzeid, and it was just so great being in conversation with you. I learned a lot, and it was an absolute honor. Shukran for your time to us.
You are welcomed, and it was a very great pleasure, and I am looking forward to seeing you another time, and hope that this was a good conversation or a successful one.
Absolutely was, absolutely.